general like fandom idea about that book is that Annabeth is the one that is being like hurt by Percy, and that Percy is the one that's like not noticing things and is like oblivious and is like hurting her feelings. And I'm like, do are you counting him being in a coma after he almost dies when he's on Calypso's island as being something that he did wrong? Because he was not awake. He was almost dead. Like he was almost dead. Like that's you can't hold that against him when he was almost dead and ended up in a magical place that he had no control over. And when he got back, she just like, was upset about that. Like, yeah, he was also upset by that. He didn't want to be there. That's not like a choice that he was making. Uh, so that's like one of those things that people are like, oh, Annabeth should have been mad at him because he did this and this and this right after he got back from Calypso's island. And it's like, am I supposed to ignore the fact that she knew when he was there that the only reason that you end up there is if you almost die? And that she was just mad at him anyway. And I was like, but what about the part where he almost died? Like, hello? And so that'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I remember my first read through. I kind of liked Rachel in this book, and I remember it was begrudgingly because the whole high school sweetheart cheating on me thing, very around this time, and the girl's name was Rachel. So there was part of me that was like, I can't like anybody named Rachel right now. But there was also just, I do remember somewhat being on the side of, yeah, Annabeth isn't being so great right now. I kind of like Rachel better for him in this moment.
Me reading the book for the first time was is funny to think about. Battle Labyrinth was one of those that I reread. Like I reread Titan's Curse and Battle Labyrinth like 70,000 times. Um, and it's funny for me to remember how I felt because I did not trust Annabeth at all when I was reading Battle of the Labyrinth, especially. Um, so like when Rachel showed up, I was like, oh, maybe Percy can end up with this person instead, because I know I've mentioned this before, but I thought that Annabeth was the mole, and it wasn't until like they reveal who the mole actually is in the last book that I could like relax and be like, okay, now I'm okay with these two getting together. But up until that point, I was like, I don't trust Annabeth. I think that she's the mole. I don't want Percy. I was so afraid that Percy was gonna like try to get together with her, and then she would like horribly betray him.
Hmm.
And the stuff that she does in that book like made me think that that was still possible. So I didn't want him to be with her because I was like, she's not a safe person. And so it's funny for me to remember that, or it's really funny for me to see like what other people thought. And I was just like, that is so different from how I saw all of that that I'm like interested to see how different I feel about all of that now.
Yeah, well, Walker Scobell thought the same thing apparently.
That was funny. Um,
Or I was like, who's this? Since when does Grover have a girlfriend? And I was all in thinking she was a spy. When you were reading the books for the first time, who did you think the spy was? Did you nail that it was Selena? What was your spy experience?
I thought it was Annabeth, and I know it's
Oh,
weird,
I've heard it a
which is
couple of
why I was
times.
always like, I just well, I, I don't know. It's just it always felt weird to me, like Luke and Annabeth. I was like, she's definitely. I thought that she was the one that couldn't get over him. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I guess it was him that we figure out at the end. Um, but I totally thought that like there was going to be a big betrayal at the end with Annabeth, and she was like she would betray Percy, and there'd be this big fight. I wasn't happy when I found out it was Selena, believe me, but I was happier that it wasn't Annabeth.
that's like the one that's literally the only person that I've ever run into. But I do feel better that the kid that ended up playing Percy felt the same thing, even if we're the only people in this entire universe who read these books being like, I don't trust Annabeth. And I feel bad because Annabeth is obviously Becky. But I still, that's just what I thought. She was being really, really not easy to get along with at the time. So that's what I thought. And I just think it's funny to see how like I always know that the things I usually think are very unpopular. And it was really funny to me to like see how wildly unpopular that opinion is. And I was like, I'm just not going to tell anybody about this. And then I watched an interview where he said that. And I was like, oh, I guess I can admit this now. Because I'm like, if this child is going to admit this, I can at least also say it out loud so he's not the only person in the universe admitting that they thought this about her.
I love that people have just turned it into a meme of this is how he's like Percy. He doesn't realize.
The thing, okay, one part of that bothers me is that he was a literal child, like a baby. He read all 10 of the Percy Jackson books between his like summer break. Between second and third grade. He read all 10 books. He read all 10 of them that summer. And I'm like, that reminds me of me when I was a kid and how much I read. And I think like you too with reading how much we would read and just like ignore everything else about life and just hyper focus on this other thing that made us happy instead. And so I was like, okay, he was like 8, 9 maybe, like I don't even think he was I think he was maybe in third grade. Like he either finished third grade or was about to start third grade. And so I'm like, I'm not sure we can really judge like a 8 to 9-year-old about how well they can pick up on like romantic undertones, especially because I was quite literally 25. And it wasn't until they literally said out loud in Titan's Curse, like Aphrodite, the god of love, literally said out loud, you guys are going to get together one day, that I was like, oh, they're going to get together one day? So if I was like 25 and did not pick up on any of that shit because of a million different things stopping me from noticing that, like pick whether it was like the crazy trauma, the dissociation, the autism, or the complex PTSD, maybe all of them combined. Either way, I didn't pick up on that at all until they literally had to tell me to make sure that was there. I'm sure for like the children reading the book, but that was helpful for me, the adult. So thanks for that, Rick, because I otherwise would have been like, why are they kissing?